Happy New Year and welcome to 2019. I'm Precythe, the Director for the Department of Corrections, and it's my pleasure to talk with you this month about what's been happening over the last 18 months related to justice reinvestment and everything we've had going on in the Department of Corrections here in Missouri. So I want to start out by reminding you how this came about. So in June of 2017, there was a task force appointed by former Governor Greitens that placed a whole bunch of people who have interest in the criminal justice system in one room, and we were with the Council of State Governments who came in and agreed to review an enormous amount of data across the criminal justice system. So they looked at arrest data, corrections data, sentencing data, victim data, behavioral health data, an enormous amount of information, and then pulled it all together and reported out to the task force. Over the course of 6 months, that data showed us some key things. One, violent crime is on the rise in several places across the state of Missouri. So what can we do locally to help impact that? There are not enough behavioral health services like substance use or mental illness available for people involved in the criminal justice system. And then thirdly, what's happening in the Department of Corrections? How can we be more efficient with our resources and what's happening in the department to really turn out a better product than what came to us? The key pieces of data for us in the Department of Corrections, we have the 8th highest incarceration rate in the United States. We have the fastest growing female incarceration rate in the United States. And we also have, when you look at the amount of people coming to prison annually, we take in about 18,000 people. 86% of those are for either a technical violation of probation or parole. That's 50% of the population. They didn't report as they were instructed to, they were testing positive, they didn't do community service, they didn't go to treatment. They did a number of things, but they did not commit a new offense. Another 35% of the population came for treatment alone. So everyone watching this, you can see how your part of corrections is impacted, whether you work in our treatment facilities, whether you work in the community, whether you work in an institution, whether you're part of MVE and Career and Tech. Whatever you do, we're all impacted by this influx of people coming to our system, whether it's under probation and parole supervision or directly to prison. So as a result of all of this information that we gathered that impacts the Department of Public Safety, the Department of Mental Health, the Department of Corrections, House Bill 1355 came about. And House Bill 1355 brought about several pieces of legislation that require DPS, DMH, and DOC to do business differently. I'm going to talk about what it means to the Department of Corrections. So the first one is that we adopt a validated risk instrument that really helps all of us across the department identify who's the most likely to be risky, at high risk for committing new offenses upon release. House Bill 1355 also forced us to create lots of different committees that could help us move forward the changes we want to make in the Department of Corrections. So we have groups looking at our community supervision centers and how can we restructure those to help them be more an intervention for that offender population under supervision and try to get them structured and completing the programming we need them to complete before they actually enter prison. Another committee is looking at the role of the institutional probation parole officer. How can we best utilize this resource from a reentry perspective and shift some of the work where it's better utilized for the parole board and the analyst, and then how can we help that field officer get all the information they need for when the offender is released back to the community. We also have committees looking at case management for DAI as well as field officers out in the community. We're looking at transitional housing units and how we can better utilize and get the right person to that particular location prior to release. And even the parole board is examining how they could use the ORAS prior to release to help them make the best decision possible about who is really ready for release to the community and who needs to remain in our institutions. The next phase of where we're headed for 2019 includes establishing an executive oversight committee by Governor Parson. That committee is made up of key stakeholders that are going to help us review how are we doing in corrections to stay on track to make these initiatives come true. How is DMH doing with expanding the behavioral health services across the state? And how is the Department of Public Safety really impacting the reduction of violent crime in our local communities? Not just Kansas City or St. Louis, but even in the rural communities where we can see that violent crime has been on the increase. So to address our increasing female incarceration rate, we've converted one of our community supervision centers to be an all-female center. And that group in Fulton has done a tremendous job really paying attention to what's going to help women be successful as they work toward getting out into the community or staying in the community and avoid coming back to prison. I'm very excited about what's happening there and with Butler, Boone, and Buchanan counties as they're exploring this justice reinvestment treatment pilot and have really engaged closely with our partners from Department of Mental Health, the local providers, local stakeholders who are coming to the table. As we expand, we're going to be looking at the use of carry guides and BITS tools, brief intervention tools for our institutions. We're going to be looking at implementing a different CBI curriculum based on the particular population or the location of the institution or the community-based facilities. We're going to be doing refresher motivational interviewing with DAI and PMP. We're also going to be conducting a thorough review of all of our institutional programming through a Justice Program Assessment Initiative with the help of the Council of State Governments. So there are a lot of things happening across our department. No one is immune to the reviews that we're doing, but it's the perfect time for us to be really looking at what are all the areas where we can impact the Department of Corrections and employees have the opportunity to do things in a more efficient, effective manner. We're not going to get more resources. So instead of working harder, we need to work smarter. And I think with the assistance of the Council of State Governments, all the stakeholders who are helping us pay attention to what we're doing with reentry initiatives, employment initiatives for the population that's being released, the population that's in the community, I think we have nowhere to go but continue going up and be successful. We deal with a very difficult and at times challenged population, and we can't be the only answer. We have to rely on our partners to help us figure out where do we need to focus our energy and then what are the best ways to go about doing that. I believe that's what this Justice Reinvestment Initiative is helping us achieve in the Department of Corrections. I think it's a good idea to bring all of you into the fold about what's happening. Many of you have heard us talk about the Justice Reinvestment Initiative, but it's all about saving money and redirecting our resources into a way that we can be more efficient and effective with the population that we work with. So I hope you found this to be informative. I'd ask you to take a look at the website and see what information is posted out there in narrative form, and we will continue to update you as the year goes on. I'm looking forward to 2019, and again, Happy New Year, and I look forward to seeing where we go from here. Thank you.